Hello and welcome to the Tuesday Tell-All. It's Tuesday, June 10th, 2025. We are already about halfway through June, and it's my favorite time of the year, by the way, because it's still light out, gets dark, nice and late. June, it was the end of school. It was like good things were happening. Summer Nationals at Englishtown, rest in peace, Englishtown. And then it was my birthday, capped off June 29th. And after that, it's all kind of downhill from there, but this is my favorite time of the year, baby. So who's all out there? I see the comments flying in already. I hope everybody's excited for tonight. We're going to have Daren Poole-Adams come on and tell us all about this 2026 Toyota Supra that he's going to be running in NHRA Stock Eliminator, which is already creating a little stir, right? So it's nice to see a new car come in, that appeals to, I guess, the younger generation for sure. I still consider myself part of the younger generation, but I'll probably consider myself part of that generation for another 40 years while I'm at it. And it's a good move. Toyota's stepping into Stock Eliminator. They were never in the guide. I actually had to go back and double check. The only Japanese cars I could see was like 2006 and 7 Honda, and I think that was pretty much it. I don't remember if I saw anything else in there. So, anyways, we're gonna have a lot to talk about. We obviously don't have much to talk about from the Bristol National event this past weekend, other than the river that ran through Perfect Pan Marshall's pit spot. Walt Walker, there he is. What's going on, buddy? How you doing? Brian Cool, good evening. How are you, Brian? Good to see you. Where's he at, Walt? I'm here. I was like 1 minute late. Come on. Tom Gent, how you doing, Tom? Ray, I can't believe you're still awake. See, this daylight keeps Ray up a little later. What's up, Tom? Down in Mooresville, North Carolina. Danny Davis, how you doing, Danny? Oh, man, I really wanted that Cobra down there, Danny. Didn't get it, though. James Greasy, what's up? How you doing, buddy? Thanks for tuning in. Appreciate it. Scott Cott, good evening from Detroit area, I believe. Steve Bruce, what's up, Steve? How you doing, buddy? Dennis Chapman, Division I stocker, front-wheel drive stocker, standout. Hayden Brown, Louisiana, New Orleans, what's up? Are you going to the South Georgia? No, I am not going to that, but I know that that's where you want to go if you want to finish that Bristol event. So that is I believe, when's that race? In July, I think. I'm not going to be able to get down there. It's July or August. I know it's during the summer, but not possible for me, guys. Sorry about that. Next place I'm going to is the Virginia Nationals in about 10 days. So hope to see you guys all there. Be sure to stop by and say hello. Give me a lucky handshake while you're at it. Lucky handshake. DriverInterviews.com. Subscribe to the YouTube channel if you could. If you want shirts, stickers, at Driver Interviews is the handle. Hashtag the car show. Use that for all of your pictures. That's our stock and super stock hashtag because we are the car show, right? The greatest car show on earth. Lupe Tortilla, the original LupeTortilla.com. That's Stan and Sheila Holt. Looking forward to seeing them pretty soon. Was hoping J-Rod would get to the Stick Shift Nationals this weekend down in Farmington Dragway down in North Carolina, because that is always a lot of fun. But he said he was on his way home from Bristol and couldn't make it, sadly. But original LupeTortilla.com. Thank you, Stan and Sheila, for making it possible. DragInsights.com. Guys, check your stats. Check your opponent's stats. You got to race somebody. You type in their name. You start typing in their name. You don't even have to type in the whole name, and it finds them. It gives you all their stats, lane preferences, averages, win percentages, how much they break out. What else do you want to know? It's got it in there, guys. So DragInsights.com, and that's a contingency sponsor as well if you are a premium member, which is only about $79 per year. So check it out. There's also a monthly plan too if you only want it for a couple months. I believe it's like $10 a month. So DragInsights.com. Thank you, Alicia. Insure your race cars, guys. Hey, maybe Daren Poole-Adams might need some insurance for that Toyota Supra. There could be some vandals out there that might not like it. So Don Kennedy Race Car Insurance, 602-284-6240 or 1donkennedy@gmail.com. All right, Don Kennedy, thanks for your support. Don Kennedy, the OG, one of my originals here. So I appreciate his help. VP Racing Fuels, guys. VP joined on this year and can't thank them enough. And if you didn't get your class contingency payments from VP last year, they are paying them all out. You should have gotten it by now. If you haven't, send them a message, and they'll square that up. They were working on that up to a month ago, from what I heard. So thank you, VP Racing Fuels, the best racing fuel I've seen so far, and I've been going a little faster using that C25. I'm not going to lie. I mean, everybody told me I would, and And it showed when I used it this past race at Maple Grove. Who else we got there? Oh, Rob Youngblood, advancedclutches.com. So I set this up on my 289 yesterday. Thank you, Rob Youngblood, that beautiful clutch. Got the heights all set. Got my counterweights all set. Got my base pressure set. All I need to do is set that engine inside of my 65 Mustang. So made a lot of moves on that yesterday and loaded her up. And she's ready to drop in there. I'm excited. Thank you, Rob Youngblood. That clutch is a thing of beauty. Can't wait. And it gives you a nice booklet, instruction manual. Easy to read, easy to check everything, some starting points. I really like that. And I called him, and he answered on the first ring. So when I did have a question, he was there to help. Advancedclutches.com. Thank you, Rob Youngblood. We've got RocketmanCoatings.com. That's Rocky Jordash. Hi, Rocky. How you doing, buddy? Get your pistons coated, rings, bearings, guys, gears, transmission gears, oil pump gears. Whatever you want, Rocket Man can do it, man. He's been doing it a long time. He actually coated some parts for the moon landing back in 1969. So this guy's got a lot of experience. Check him out, rocketmancoatings.com. Who else we got? Bruce Fulper, PontiacEngines.com, Mr. 428 Super Stocker Racer. He loves his Pontiacs. He's out in California. Hope he's being safe out there, Bruce. Hope you're in tonight, Bruce. Looking forward to talking to you and seeing you. Who else we got? Ray Minnick. Get your taxes done, guys. Ray Minnick. That's RP Minnick PC. RPM at rpminnick.com. If you are a racer and you want to learn how to run your racing through your business and or have any tax questions, Ray Minnick can help you out. He's based out of Pennsylvania. His number is 267-247-7601, but he may have some baseline strategies for you depending on no matter what state you live in. So he is always happy to help. All right, guys, let's see. We've got, that's right, Rocky. I did see Mitsubishi was in there. I think it was 1991 or something, Mitsubishi. So thanks for bringing that up. Appreciate that. Who else? Who else do we got? All right, the comments are flying in faster than I can get them up here. Zen, what's up, Brian? How you doing, buddy? Thanks for your update. I'll be sure to shout that out in a second. John Winslow, how you doing, John? Good to see you in here. John got the first win in a V10 Challenger, I believe, this year. Mark Iacovone, what's going on, man? Mark Iacovone, California guy? I think he's from the West Coast. I don't know. Buy a cool race car. Bob Bale's original Macho Pancho 1973 455 Firebird. Call Bruce. Bruce Fulper's got a car for if you want a Pontiac, a 455 Firebird. All right. That sounds amazing. 1973. That's before cars really took a turn for the worse, right, Bruce? Chip Minnick, what's up? How's it feel to have the Pope as an alumnus? It feels great. I was at Villanova University this morning. I took my grandmother there for a retirement luncheon. My grandmother worked there for 30 years. So she likes to go to that. She's 92 years old. I bring her over there. She gets to see a couple old coworkers, and we get a nice meal, and it's a nice thing. But they did say since the Pope and since the basketball won a couple championships, they get 26,000 applicants this past year for only 7,000 undergraduate spots. So I went to Villanova. I graduated from Villanova, but I don't think I'd be able to get into Villanova today. And, I'm kind of smart, but I don't know if I have what it takes to beat out, 19,000 other applicants. Billy Ryder, what's going on, man? Sitting here with Dad and watching you. All right, Nick, how you doing, buddy? Saying hello to Nick. Joe Collins, last year's Stick Shift Nationals winner. What's up, Joe? How you doing? I can't decide, man. 50 and 60% chance of rain. The forecast will not change. So I am trying to book a flight down there for this race this weekend. It's the greatest, it's like stepping back in time by 30 years. 9,000 RPM clutch drops, dry hops. It's amazing. If it was quarter mile, it would be that much cooler. It's eighth mile. It's still the coolest drag race I've ever been to. All right, guys, we got to get started here. We'll try to get to more comments as they're flying in. I got to shout out the birthdays. These are the Drag Insights birthdays. This is on the homepage in Drag Insights. If you've provided your birthday when you signed up, you get a shout out right here. So we got Michael Fenton, June 4th. Happy birthday, Michael. We got Larry Miller. That's Bunk Miller, Division I Superstock Racer. June 7th. Happy birthday, Larry. And we've got Carl Seawick, Jim Wall, and Cody Reed, June 8th. Happy birthday, gentlemen. And we got Giovanni. This is a cool name. Giovanni Kolecki on June 9th and Vincent Forcade on June 9th. Giovanni Kolecki. Nice. I like it. Giovanni with a J. I'm not used to seeing that. So happy birthday, gentlemen. That was yesterday. All right, as you know, Bristol was canceled. Stock Eliminator ran first round. I don't think Superstock got anything. They may have gotten a few pairs down the track, but every time I turned on the TV, it was like delay, or the pros were running. So this race will be continued at South Georgia Motorsports Park. I do think NHRA is being pretty generous about this. Like if you want to withdraw, I believe that they're letting you and probably letting you transfer the credit. So I want to thank them for doing that. That's a nice move right there, because this race there was nothing you could do. This race was jinxed from the start. We knew the forecast didn't look too good. Those that went there, they tried to stick it out, and it just wasn't working out. It's unfortunate. I've never been to Bristol yet. I've kind of been wanting to go every year, but I'm sure glad I didn't go this year. But who knows? Maybe next year. Maybe next year. So good luck anybody heading to South Georgia is trying to finish that race. What else? We got the George Mirza was nice enough to give me the results from the All-Star Racing Association race yesterday in Epping, or 2 days ago in Epping, I should say. It was the Vic Santos Memorial Race. TJ Boucher defeated Ethan Sutherland, and Tim Gray was the lone semifinalist. There were 46 cars, and the winner took home over $7,000. That's amazing. It paid back very well to the second round, from what he tells me. So $7,000 to win at a combo race. It was the Vic Santos Memorial Race. Awesome. Thank you, George Mirza, for that. Brian Zenzen is my savior out there in Division 5. So there was a Brainerd International Raceway Stock Superstock combo this weekend. This is the Feist Automotive and Towing Stock Superstock combo powered by Line Performance. Saturday's winner was Scott Dugdale in a Superstock K-Automatic Monte Carlo, and runner-up was Brad Halgard in a GTI Automatic Dodge Stratus. Sunday, Scott Dugdale doubles, man. He wins back-to-back in the Superstock K-Automatic Monte Carlo, so he made some money this weekend. And the runner-up was Tracy Fairchild in the D-Stock Automatic AMX. I think it's a 70 AMX, a blue one, and it's nice. I like that car. So congratulations, Scott Dugdale, on winning both days. Now, that is a combo in D5 and an association, I should say. And now we've got another association. So Thunder Valley Dragways Midwest Class Racers Association, which is the association that I know very well. They had a race also. So they got a couple things going on out there in D5. This one was presented by the Iverson Auto Group. And Saturday's winner was Kurt Heeb in a factory stock Mustang, a Cobra Jet. Runner-up was Tony Henderson. I believe Tony Henderson, what's that, a 65 Corvette stick car, a blue one? If so, very, very cool. Love the car. Sunday's winner was Steve Compion in a 1969 Camaro. Congratulations, Steve. And runner-up was Wayne Denklaw in a 66 Nova, as he drives. I want to say a red Nova is what that is, but in this brain, there's a lot of things flying around, and sometimes I get confused. But Midwest Class Racers is back at it this weekend at Brainerd International Raceway. So they're racing again this weekend. My goodness, they should just split off and start their own sanctioning body at this point. 12th Annual Paul Bunyan Classic. That's presented by Barrett Pet Food. It's the last chance for racers to qualify for the 2025 Race of Champions. The action kicks off Friday with the Brenny Friday Super Series. All right. Lots of fun stuff going on out there in Division 5. Amazing. Brian Zenzen does a great job keeping me updated, and I am thankful to him for that. It makes my job a lot easier to give you guys the news here. I'm just telling you the news. All right. So let's talk about some more news. We got Daren Poole-Adams on, and we are going to talk to him about some breaking news this weekend. Last week, I should say, at the Horsepower Expo, which was in Charlotte, North Carolina, which sounds really cool, by the way. I want to go to that. I kind of want to go beyond the PRI show. I want to start trying to go to a couple other things. I want to go to SEMA in Vegas, and this Horsepower Expo sounds pretty cool, too. Maybe next year, hopefully they have that again. But let's see. Let's get Daren Poole-Adams on here so we can get the conversation rolling. Let me see if I can patch him in. Here we go.
Hey, how's it going?
Adams, you there, buddy?
Yeah, I'm here. Thanks for having me.
He can hear us. He's in the dark, man.
You want me to light it up?
No, that's all right. We don't need to see you that badly. I'm just kidding. How you doing, buddy? Thanks for joining us tonight. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me here. I'm kind of nervous. I don't know how much I'm going to get beat up tonight.
No. I'm sure that you're probably tired of. I'm sure what you're going to tell us tonight. You probably had to tell 100 people already, and and you're probably tired of speaking about it, but it was a pretty breaking announcement that you have built a 2026 Toyota Supra in accordance with Toyota Racing Development, from what I understand, and you are going to debut this car pretty soon. But you can tell us a little bit about the background, how you developed the relationship with Toyota, knowing that you've had Copos and I guess Chevrolets as long as I've been racing, but I know you've been racing for about 30-ish years now, and also, I want to get into like a little bit of your backstory as well, because I don't know if many people know about that, and that to me is very interesting. So
you get me talking for hours. That's all happened.
We're gonna do all this in 25 minutes. So no, I'm just kidding. We can go as long as you feel like talking, man.
Yeah.
Let's start with the car though, Daren. I mean, it's the big hit here.
Yeah.
Toyota Supra.
Yeah.
Go ahead. You start it off. Go ahead. Tell us what you got.
What I'll say on this, I think this audience is a different audience than everybody else I've talked to about this car. When I brought it to the High Performance Expo, that was at their request. They knew it was going to be a big deal, and they wanted the announcement to be there. What people don't realize, the manufacturers are not really jumping to get combinations into the guide. You have to chase them. You have to pursue it. I first started trying to talk to Toyota in 2013.
Oh, wow.
So it's been a long road. One thing I'll say about dealing with Toyota is they have been really nice to deal with on every level. Everybody I've dealt with at all. They've told me no a lot. I've got several reasons for getting into this, for wanting to bring Toyota to the table. First of all, is the cars are just pretty to look at, and their the technology there is good. I think they'll make good race cars. Contrary to some of the reports out there, they did not come running to me to put a Toyota in the guide. I had to chase them. I got very serious about it when originally I was talking to them about the FRS. I talked to a gentleman at Charlotte in 2013, and that's now the Toyota 86, and I was trying to get something going there, and I was told no in a really, really nice way, but I was told no. And my attitude then was, well, they're talking to me at least. With the Supra, around this latest batch of discussion started at around 22. When they did that 10 seconds for $10,000 deal, I thought, well, they're and then they had the funny cars out there. I thought, well, they're starting to, if they're looking at like souping up some street cars, then they're starting to get into our lane a little bit, and maybe they can be talked to. Those are the cars that Antron, all those guys match raced at the national events. So when I saw the press release for that, I reached out to Jamie Meyer at PRI, and I said, man, can you get me an interview with Toyota if I come to SEMA? So he said, absolutely. I flew out to SEMA, and I booked a hotel room, and I hung around for a few days there and never did get my meeting. SEMA's a busy time for them. And I'm just Daren Poole-Adams. I'm not saying I'm anybody special, but, I'm definitely not, they had other things to do. Let's put it that way.
Got a hyphen in your last name. It looks important.
Yeah. It goes back to my great grandfather, so that's kind of cool.
Now, my question is, have you, when you're asking Toyota about the first car there, the 86, are you using Stock Eliminator? Are you using those terms, and do they even know what you're talking about? Or
all the way back then, that's when the Cobra Jets and drag packs and Copos were kind of new. I had just got my 2012 Copo, and I was running that pretty successfully, and I'd reached out to Chevrolet for a second one for a team car, and got told, nah, back then there was high demand on those cars, and they were like, nah, don't be greedy, and I'm like, seriously, I need a second car. And that's when I kind of started looking for something. And also I just thought those cars were cool. But what I looked at then is that they had that booth at Charlotte, and they had the FRS sitting there, and then they had one of the truck engines on a stand. And, you know, me being me, I was like, can we put that motor into that car? You know, and you know, you would have had that factory car that, you know, nobody wants. But they were against that, so that did not happen. With the Supra, I saw the opportunity to do a production car, you know.
So they ended up saying yes to the Supra, but they were aware of what Stock Eliminator was. I mean, do they have any thoughts or reservations about the class?
So the next step that happened with this thing is I went to PRI, and there was nobody from Toyota there, and I reached out to Lonnie, and I said, Lonnie, I said, you deal with Toyota all the time, like how do I get to talk to somebody? I got to get this bug out of me. I'm by this time really want to do it. And he said, we'll talk to Slugger for you. And Slugger Labby is this legend in NASCAR racing that happens to be their technical guy on the NHRA side. And the guy that helps me with my short blocks is a good friend of mine, Kelly Thacker. He comes from Penske. And so I reached out to Kelly, and I said, because I didn't leave things alone when I was at the PRI. I figured I'd try and take a shot myself. So I reached out to Kelly, and I said, hey, man, I said, do you know the Slugger guy? And he said, yeah, I know him, but one of my friends is like his best friend. So I said, can I, trouble you to get me a phone number and tell him I won't stalk him and I won't bug him. I just got to know. And so I messaged him. I said, hey, I'm Daren Poole-Adams, and I'd like to run one of your Supras in Stock Eliminator. And he said, well, we're not interested in pro stock, pro mod, comp eliminator. And I said, great, because I want to run Stock Eliminator. So that was kind of, and then they got to explain to me that was more complicated than I thought. And so I tried to make my argument for a while, and really wasn't getting much headway. But you've got to figure this guy's way up there in Toyota racing, and he doesn't even need to be talking to me, but he is answering every text I send him. You know, so as far as Stock Eliminator, it wasn't even on their radar.
Yeah.
You know, they roll in, for the pro testing. And, they have a crew there that, like, the crew that they have there looking at the racetrack, every bump, every crack, every seam, everything. I mean, they gave me a newfound respect for whatever goes into the fuel cars and stuff. Like what goes on that day, it's the technology is mind blowing. It's a lot more than you'd expect. So I've kind of learned that through this. But they're not watching Stock Eliminator at 8:00 in the morning. I may have put it on their radar now. I think when I got this car and I sent them a picture of the bare shell and not one bolt on it, it made them go, huh? Because I think they were maybe expecting wheels and tires and, something like that. If you've looked at the rule book lately, it's that would work against me if I went that route.
Right. Well, hey, persistence paid off. I didn't know it went all the way back to 2013. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And then since 2022, then this latest round. And
it took me a year to get the car, and it's taken me a year to get to this point. Every single piece of it has to go to the NHRA to be looked at.
Now, are you doing all this by yourself? Do you have helpers? You doing this at your house, at a shop? How are you doing this?
I had it in my shop originally. I've got a shop down in Lattimore, which is about a mile from here. And I had it in there originally, and I was getting so many visitors that I moved it to one of the bays at the house here. I cleared out. I've got a hobby shop on the house. So when we sent it from the other shop, after we did all the fab work, because we did the cage ourselves, we did all the rear suspension, all the chassis, there's very little that we didn't do on the car. But when it went out to paint, when it came back from paint, I brought it home for assembly. We've managed to keep this quiet pretty well. I've got a few racer buddies that knew about it, and I tell each one of them a little different story so I could figure out if it leaked where it came from.
Right. Right.
It wasn't quite that serious, but you get one chance to come to press, and I think it's a cool project. I've had fun with it so far.
Right now, the fact that it was it's Supra, it is a, rear wheel drive car. There, from what I understand, is the last year for the Supra. So where is this going to leave you now? I mean, or Toyota? I'm surprised they really wanted to go for it. Or is it like a teaser, like the final edition? Is that like a teaser that,
These guys are car guys. They're enthusiasts. There's a lot of these cars running out in the drift world. The plan is for me, it's not to have a Supra, it's to have Supras. Okay. Right now, the concentration, obviously, I've just gotten started with this thing, is this generation of cars. So I'm not just going to build one and be done. So I had to break it to Foley Sunday that he may not be in a Copo next year. It's he loves that car. I mean, that's a killer car that he's in. But if I can make this Supra work, then that's what I prefer he drives. It would be another Supra. So I don't know. There is another generation Supra rumored out there. Whether they let me have a look at that or not, I don't know. I mean, I know what I want. I'm I'm all about racing. My first Stalker was a Firebird. And it was a new car, so I liked. I started Poole-Adams racing in 1995, and the first thing I did was buy a new Firebird. So I've got a long history of taking brand new cars and grenading them and making Stalkers.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So.
Well, so this is this has a BMW engine in it. Now, from what I understand, it's pretty amazing. So you got Toyota, BMW, they come together. Toyota wanted an inline 6-cylinder. I guess they figured for us to try and build one from scratch is just not efficient. We'll get one from BMW. And they kind of teamed up here, it sounds like. And that's the B58 engine that will be in this vehicle. And that's what you started working with. So how did that progress? Did you just build a complete engine from scratch, or did you take, a street engine and start modifying it, or how did it go?
So I what to say, like that end of the, I've only had pushrod V8s all my life. So that end of this equation is very new to me. So the decision we made right off the bat is, I've got three engines. All of them are used. Okay. And so we took the lowest small one I had, and we basically just freshened it, decked it. We're working with Toyota on it. So we're also weighing everything and measuring everything. And so that will all go into the submission process for NHRA. So we did a valve job. We put valve springs in it, just CC'd everything. We're not even going to put cams in the first motor. Okay. And this thing has 3 camshafts. It has the intake, the exhaust, and then it has a cam that comes in and varies the intake rate or the intake lift. About the trickiest thing we did in there was lock that out to where we got all the lift all the time. I don't know what it'll run. I think it'll be pretty good. But I've got, you got to figure I got a brand new chassis. ATIA has helped me out with a bolt together converter so that we can try and figure out what stall it likes. Uncle Robin Lawrence is going to let me take it up and put it on his chassis dyno. And we're going to kind of, I had to go to England to get an ECU for this thing. If you notice, we slipped the Delta SCS ECU into the guide about a year ago. That's a road race engine swap ECU that's out there. That was the only thing I could find at the time that would run the direct injection, and that they had a little bit of history of adapting it over to these engines. Holly, I approached Holly with it, and they were like, not really our market. So there's been a lot of stuff that's you look at the rule book and what what it allows and what you have to do to build a stalker right now, there's a lot to this thing. So we've got a lot to test, and I've got a lot to learn. So I sure as heck didn't want to build a killer motor or whatever for day one.
Right. Now advertised, it's 382 horsepower at 6,500 RPM. I can only imagine you turning it into a stalker. You're probably going to buzz this thing pretty high. I mean, have you kind of figured out what range you're going to be in yet?
The turbo is going to be the limiting factor there. And so that's my latest piece that was talking with Lonnie yesterday. Was, if you look in the rule book, and this is the thing, and go to turbo, and it basically says you've got to be within 2 millimeters of the opening on the front of the turbo, and that's all it says. And so I reached out I got one answer that came back and just showed me what the rule book said, and I finally got a hold of Lonnie, and he was in transit, and he said, "Whoa, no, we're going to measure a whole lot more than that." Okay. And so, okay, I'm like, I said, this monkey needs to see what you're going to measure, because I don't know what's in and what's out on this thing. So, a funny thing that came up on this thing is, so the exhaust manifold is cast into the body of the turbo on the production turbo on there. So I reached out to them and I said, "Hey, can I cut this off, put a flange, and then build a header?" And they said, "No, but you can run an aftermarket turbo and a header." Okay. So I'm running into, these guys think I'm stretching things out here. I'm learning a lot. So that's why I'm not quite ready with the car, because I don't want to build or make anything that I got to redo. Right. So now I'm trying to learn about the turbo a little more and what they're going to measure to know what to ask for if we go to an outside vendor for it. I'm trying to learn. I mean, but I do think that the factory turbo may go static way before I'd like it to.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah. So that's things to learn, and that's anything new like that. You don't. I remember when we first did DI with Chevrolet, they were telling me that you'll never make that work in Stock Eliminator, and I'm like, well, let me try. And that's how we ended up, Robin and I, doing that whole deal with direct injection, and that turned out pretty good for us. So but it's, you never know. So I'm lucky I'm surrounded by really good friends that will help a buddy out. Right. I couldn't afford them, let's put it that way.
Now I know the rear end, they come with like an adaptive, high-tech, I guess, independent rear, limited slip, whatever, that you're not going to be running. Right. You're running a Ford 9-inch, and I think a couple of people were a little concerned about that, but the rule book does clearly state in Stock Eliminator, anything made after 2008 can have a 9-inch rear.
So what happens here with the manufacturers? I went through this in 2010 with the original Camaro, and getting it legal for Stock Eliminator before the Copo was. Okay, and that was something I did with Bruce back then. But what happens is, you're the first guy that builds one of these things. The rule is you got to have a solid lower control arm, and you're allowed adjustable uppers. You're allowed a sway bar or anti-sway bar, and then you're allowed a pan hard. You work with the manufacturer, obviously, and then the first rendition of that, gets approved by NHRA, and then all cars built after that have to look like that. Okay, so if you look underneath this thing, it's very similar to a Copo. The upper arms are a little longer, and so are the bottom ones. The packaging is a whole lot different on the car, but they're pretty much all the cars across the brands are about the same. When you look underneath them now, that's if you were stuck with the factory rear ends, you would just be breaking stuff all the time. Toyota, that was one thing they really couldn't understand. I actually got inside their tech trailer. Like they originally, with the original meeting I had with Toyota was between that trailer and the Kalita trailer. It's how I got my actual handshake, and now I've actually been inside the tech trailer a couple of times, and that's kind of cool, for me. But one of the things they couldn't understand is they were like, well, why don't we put one of our rear ends in there? And I'm like, well, your rear ends are all truck rear ends, and they're not going to allow it.
Right, and I was unaware of that rule. I actually had to go in the rule book, and it's there in black and white.
They looked at me like, well, you're insane. And I'm like, I'm sorry. It's like, yeah, we can run a corporate 9-inch, but we can't do that. And I think that would have been kind of fun. The only thing that I was sweating on that is if I could have pulled that off is there's limited gear ratio choices, but they have a 10-inch ring gear out there in one of their axle assemblies. It has a removable center section too, But one of the things I was facing there is like, if I had to make a spool for that thing, I'd probably have to buy a whole run off them and hopefully find a bunch of 4-wheel drive guys that wanted spools.
Right.
So, and that's you want to lead the way. You better bring your checkbook,
Yeah.
Or in my case, you sell a Copo.
Oh man. Well, at least you're keeping Foley on, in a car. It sounds like, yeah.
Foley's a brilliant guy. If you ever meet Foley, he's a great guy.
Absolutely.
He the family, getting to hang out with Bobby Warren. People don't realize how nostalgic I am about stock and super stock. I've been blessed that I know Bobby Warren, and I knew Woodrow, and I knew Randy Payne pretty good, and went to lunch with him in Rome and stuff. I want to hear all the old stories. That's what I'm about. I live for this stuff. And
I think Bobby just turned like 92 or something recently.
Yeah, it's his birthday today, I think.
Today? Oh, right? Man, we got to get him on Drag Insights so we get his shout out. Happy birthday, Bobby Warren. How about it?
Yeah, but no, I'm blessed in that. I mean, I wish I had more funds and the ability to put more people in cars. Sometimes, Veronica might not agree with that, but she thinks I'm insane too. So that's
put her in a car. Maybe she'll change her mind.
I can't get her to do it. I think she'd be really, really good at it. She's a real clear thinker. I think that she would be really, really good, but I cannot persuade her to do it.
How about a test and tune, like just in the daily driver, just go down the track once, twice?
She's just like, no. So she's a car girl. She drives around a Mercedes with twin turbos,
Wow.
So, yeah, twin turbos on a V8. So it's pretty sporty.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. So, yeah, she's funny.
That's pretty amazing. Well, as far as the car is offered to the public. Now, this is a vehicle. It has a VIN number. I mean, this was the whole point of Stock Eliminator for the many years until, like, in my opinion, Stock Eliminator, it wasn't for selling cars anymore. That's why I pitched it as the car show. But now you're bringing it back to maybe a win on Sunday, sell on Monday type of deal here. And I like the fact that these cars have VIN numbers and they're available to the public. Now, they're not going to be available with the 9-inch rear and, the transmission, which is another, I guess, maybe
there's
controversial.
There's a clear pathway to that one too. We live in a complicated world,
right?
But really, I think if you look at Stock Eliminator, we've got to, we're probably the biggest pain in the butt that the NHRA has. We're the coolest thing they have. By far, we're the coolest thing they have. You will convince me. If people would come to Indy on when we're running class and the drama and the heartbreak and the craziness that goes on there, if they would come and see that, they would probably make it their annual thing. Once, or they'd recommend it to their friends. But stock, if you really go back and look at the history of it, and you go back all the way to the GTOs and even the lightweight cars from the 60s and stuff, it was a new car class. And it was really driven heavily. Everybody was a car guy back then, and that's not so much now. But it was really, really driven by new cars. And you look at, I see, I'm looking over here and see, like, what's the horsepower rating on the side there? I'm a big GTO guy. And if you want to tell me that a Ram Air 4 1969 GTO had 370 horsepower, you're full of it, Okay. And the same thing goes for the 428 Cobra Jets, the original ones, that it was all a game then. And it's not so much a game now. we'll get to that one. But, for me with getting Toyota in there, Chevrolet had told me flat out they weren't interested in pursuing anything else. For right now, this maybe will stimulate, the thing about this, you dump a Toyota into a class that was traditionally set up for the big three.
Yep.
Okay. And that's, a lot of my friends are like, shoot, you really did something funky here. I'm trying to be nice with my wording on all this stuff. If you know me, I get a potty mouth, but you look at this, and bringing Toyota in ought to shake up the world. Maybe we'll get another Cobra jet out of this. I don't know. Maybe we'll at least get the Mustangs in the guide.
Yeah, you know what? It's a good strategy. Maybe the big three will wake the hell back up and get something going again.
And if
remember last year, and I remember you sent me a text before, and now I get it. Now I'm putting it all together. I think before you heard the rest of my sentence, but I said Toyota is sponsoring the U.S. Nationals. Like, this is weird to me. Okay, Toyota is sponsoring the U.S. Nationals. Like, I blame the big three for allowing that to happen. But thank you, Toyota, for sponsoring the U.S. Nationals. And you texted me and you were like, well, what's wrong with Toyota sponsoring the U.S. Nationals? And I said, nothing, but it's like a little bit of an oxymoron, I guess, but
you got to figure I've been dying for 2 years now. It's like dying. So
probably popping up out of an engine bay covered in shit and saying, what's wrong with them sponsoring? But
But you look at it, and the world has changed a lot since the 60s and 70s and all that stuff. And I don't think a lot of people realize that all the Tundras are made here in the U.S. So if a Tundra shows up anywhere else in the world, it comes from the U.S. So it's kind of the automotive world has changed a lot. You're going to get a Ford or a Chrysler pickup truck. It's probably coming from Canada or Mexico, So it's the world's changed, and
right.
I feel some of it, sometimes we should too, a little bit, be a little bit more flexible,
Well, talking about flexibility here. So we've got a Toyota Supra powered by a BMW running a GM transmission and a Ford rear end. So, let's see.
So here's the way it works.
Let's talk about the transmission here, because I know they come with 8-speed automatics and 6-speed manuals.
And we looked at that. I found a controller in Australia that would run it. I've got some experience with the GM 8-speeds because we had a contract where we tested a bunch of parts for GM on the street Camaros. They had a bunch of drag parts, and we actually managed to get that contract. And so I get a little experience, and the things are pretty sporty. And I think the same would go for the ZF box. The big conversation I had with Toyota about it was, I said to them, I think I can get a GM transmission in this car, and I'll tell you why. But they said, well, why would you want to do that? And they're pulling out all these different transmissions from their history, and you're looking at the foot-pound ratings on them, and they'd be very fragile, and there's not a lot of stuff available. And then you look at the ZF, and they were like, well, we got this guy in the Dominican, and he's running 820s and running the factory stuff. And I said, could you talk to him and find out what SFI stuff he's got on that thing? And they message. All these guys have a great rapport with all they're car guys. He starts texting this guy in the Dominican, and 30 minutes later, I'm sure this guy's like, "Oh, Toyota's calling me," and he texts back and he says nothing. Okay. So that's a big hurdle. Okay. JC makes a flex plate for it now, so you can do the SFI flex plate, but there's a lot of complexity there in that thing, and I think it would be a crappy deal if there's 64 of us show up. I like to go up early. I like to be in some of the early pairs a lot when I race, and I think it'd be kind of a crappy deal if I went up there real early and grenaded a transmission on the start line for the 62 cars that are behind me. So that was one of my concerns. I think I can make it reliable. Cost would be huge. Okay. And so there was that factor. And so now, how did I get a GM transmission in the car? So the Supra is a joint venture with BMW. It's built on the Z4 chassis, which is their roadster. And that's how you end up with the BMW B58 engine. And I know it had to go through a bunch of proving with Toyota too, because they have a different way of looking at things. One of these days I'll get somebody at Toyota to tell me the whole story so I can really tell it better. But what a lot of people don't realize is traditionally BMW use GM transmissions. And that goes way, way back. BMW doesn't make any transmissions. They buy them all from contractors. Okay. So by our rules, any corporate transmission. And that's I've had to prove that pathway to the NHRA. And I sent them, there's a lot of parts in the Supra that have a BMW sticker on them or BMW printed on them. And I just sent them hundreds and hundreds of pictures. And really? I say, guys, tell me it doesn't have this legacy to it and it doesn't have this pathway. Mm-hmm. I think we are getting to a time with all the SFI stuff, and the world's going to hate me for this. But the 4-speeds, you can run any aftermarket 4-speed in a stalker, because they used to break them all with the horsepower levels we're at and the stresses that we throw into these cases, in the first 60 feet, especially. I think there's a time is really approaching when we should be looking at, running aftermarket cases. And I think with that, you're looking at I've got 200s that are from the 80s. So what does that make it? It makes them 40 years old, the cases. Okay. And some of those 350s and stuff out there, maybe 50 or 60 years old, and there's 400s. I mean, we're gradually running out of stuff to race with, as far as those parts. I mean, the attrition rate, I've been through, I put a lot of cases in the dumpster over the years. So I know that too. And one thing that's going to happen is nobody's going to cast an aftermarket 200 case, and they won't cast a C4 case. I don't believe, right. Because our market's so limited, but there's lots of GM cases out there because in another world that isn't Stock Eliminator, that's what everybody's running. There's huge availability. So that's a different argument for a different time. I got to this through a legitimate pathway, and I did get some pushback, but in the end, it makes sense.
Right. Well, the wording in the rule book says transmission must be same make as car, which makes it's
okay.
Is it the car? Is it the engine? Is it the chassis?
If you remember, about 2 years ago, I put a post on Class Racer and I said, "Hey, what transmission came in an AMC? Is legal for an AMC?" So by divine intervention, like 30 years after the car is built, Chrysler buys AMC or whatever, and now all of a sudden you can run whatever the heck you want. We have some crazy rules, guy. That's my thoughts on it, and yeah.
First 6-cylinder and 9s. All right, so we covered the trans, we covered the rear, the engine, as you said. I know you were developing what the front end, I guess. You used Strange. You put a strut front end up there with Strange components.
So what happened with this thing? There are some parts out there in the aftermarket. Have been some stuff when I got to looking. It's like these different companies advertising drag shocks and stuff, and you start looking at the stuff, and it's purple and green because it's for a different crowd than us, and it's maybe not as hardcore. These cars are starting to get a cult following, and these are the cars that the kids buy, and instantly they have to bolt stuff on them, and everything's out there was set up for a 17-inch wheel, and I didn't want to run a 17-inch wheel. So I partnered with Strange, and I sent them all the pieces off the car, and we built a front strut, and we built a front brake package, and then I worked with Weld to give me a wheel that would use the factory bolt pattern and everything, and fit on that hub, so that we were able to put together an entire 15-inch front wheel package that just bolts in. So number one, it's good for me in Stock Eliminator. And then number two, it's something that maybe I can peddle to some of the the more hardcore super racers out there that they can, we're testing in a 7-second Supra right now, the front struts. So, that may grow a little niche for me. I don't know. As I get older, I'd rather work on cars than textiles machines. The other thing that wasn't available was there was no master manual brake master cylinder assembly. So we engineered our own block and adapter and all that stuff. And we're using the factory pedal and factory mounting holes. So again, it's something cool. And it seems to work. Pushing the car around, the brakes work. And the other segment in there was a manual rack and pinion. We did all that in-house. We actually took the factory mounting points and moved them around a little bit. And so it still looks all factory, and it's very, very rigid because, all these cars came with electric steering, and it's like, you got to be a weightlifter to carry those things around. And also it would add such a monster amount of complexity to the car. That's the thing with these cars. There's so many gizmos and gadgets in these cars that would be an electrical nightmare when you're racing it. I think, whoever lost a round because their electrical went out in their steering. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I don't want that in my life.
Right. Now, Turbo 400, so you're going to the automatic. Is it going to be an electric shift or an air shift or anything like that? Or are you old school? Do you like to shift the car yourself?
If you know me, there are no gadgets in my cars. We run a rev limiter in the burnout so that we don't grenade the engines. But we foot brake, we shift our own gears. Paul Forte at Turbo Action, I do a lot of stuff with him because I love Paul. He's another one of those old guys that's been around forever, has a great Chrysler history he'll tell you about with the Hemi cars and stuff way back when. And, he just fusses at me for not wanting E-shift. And it's like, dude, if those pro stock guys, and even the stock or stick shift guys can jam those gears going down the racetrack, you're going to tell me I can't do it? And also you're going to take the fun out of it. I like smacking the shit out of that gear lever, I'm a little bit afraid to have did I just cuss on live TV?
Sorry. Yes, words okay. It's still PG 13. Yeah. We're all right.
But my thing there is it takes the fun out of driving, the foot brake and all that stuff. I'm here, I got that stressful week and I got all that work going on, and you jump in that car, you got to have a little bit of movement. I don't want it doing all its things for itself, Right. And if you look at anybody that works with me, even if it's like McNeil Freeman, it's like when I was helped him a little bit last year on his car, and I'm like, yeah, we need to get rid of all these damn two steps. All this shit needs to come out of this car. You need to drive this car, man. You need to have fun in your life, So I'm like, and he brings the fun back to your life too. If you ever hang around with that guy, he is a nut.
That guy is smiling ear to ear all the time.
He is the biggest ambassador for what we do. We are blessed to have him.
Absolutely. I forgot about this question here. Will it have a mechanical throttle cable?
Obviously that's allowed. We're going to try out the drive-by-wire up front. It's the ECU I've got supposed to be able to handle that. So I'm going to take a shot at that. Again, it's out of my wheelhouse, but I know like Robin's running on his Cobra Jet. He's running drive-by-wire right now, and it works pretty good. Like most of the new boxes will handle the drive-by-wire.
Yeah, a friend of mine was having a lot of problems with it and switching over to mechanical. I've never run anything that runs the drive-by-wire, so I don't really know, but that's more your guys' speed. What size throttle body also is?
Shoot. I'll get around to it. I'll measure it here shortly.
Now, it's not in the guide yet. I know
it's a little bitty one. The thing you go through with this stuff, we just did the 2024 Camaro. Put that in the guide. And so when you look at this, and there's a lot of stuff gets thrown around the internet about how these combinations get in there. Number one, you've got to want the combination. Number two, you got to find an ear at GM or Toyota or whatever that's willing to work with you. They don't have these people all lined up saying, oh, what are we going to put in the guide this year? You have to find a willing partner at the manufacturer to get these things in. When you do this stuff, you end up having to do a lot of the legwork. Okay. And you don't just fill out a bunch of paperwork and turn it in. You have to know each part, understand each part, measure each part. And some of it too, is you do need to look at it and say, within the rules, where would this spec end up? And I'm talking like when you've got this thing written for 2 millimeter allowance in the turbo, now I need to know what you measure everywhere. That's come up because somebody with a Grand National 30 years ago did something. I'm sure. It's not something I bought around, but you go back and look at every spec the manufacturers have done a little bit of something in there. All I can do is recommend and say to them, I recommended a lot on the 2010 Camaro, and the guy that was involved in that, the GM, didn't want to hear it, and that's why you've never seen a 2010 Camaro. If you look, that's the 1 year that the LS3 head spec is wrong. Okay. Yeah. And I may revisit that with somebody later, if the 2015 gets beat up more, to give, half of this is just to give people options. I just did the 2024 Camaro to help a buddy out basically. And I'm working on a Toyota.
Right. Well,
it's not for me,
And it looks like they are fixing, every time I go on NHRAracer.com, it looks like there's a correction or a blueprint correction, another head casting, things like that. So
yeah, I had a discussion with them yesterday about they moved the DI around and made everything port injection, and I don't know if they fixed it today. I haven't had a chance to look today, but they had kind of messed up the 16 to 19 Camaro Copos, and now they need to put that back, I guess. Every once in a while you find something in the guide. I could tell you some stuff that's wrong, but I don't think it's anything anybody really. It's not performance stuff. It's just stuff they'll find it eventually. Somebody get tore down, and somebody will say, "Oh, that's the wrong number."
Right. Well, as far as it's not in the guide yet. I know somebody just had asked a couple minutes ago because they don't see it on NHRAracer.com yet. But when do you think NHRA will add it to the page?
I would hope to, it's finding time with the Toyota guys to sit down and do the TI forms and all that stuff. So that will happen soon. I would like to have, personally, I'd like to have the car at Indy. I mean,
okay.
If you're gonna do something, Indy would be the place. I'm not exactly sure what class it'll fall into.
Yeah.
There's a little negotiating goes on there too. It's I'll tell you this one thing, because this comes up on Class Racer a good bit. I've been involved with the factories now, with the Copos and all that stuff since 13. I've yet to see any cash change hands. I've yet to see anybody slip anybody any money. I've yet to see any corruption whatsoever. Everybody I've dealt with is a car guy, is an enthusiast, and the stuff they've done, a lot of it's been above and beyond, and they did it because they're enthusiasts. It's a little ludicrous to look at Toyota pulling out of the professional program and think they're going to pull all that money out, and now they're going to throw it at me for a stalker, or the NHRA to put a stalker in the guide. I mean, I'm not turning down any money, but by God, I haven't seen it yet. So I'm not sitting here waiting for it, Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
The $1 million question. Then we know the car is advertised at 382 horsepower. I can't imagine that a manufacturer would want to put this in the guide and rate it at 382 horsepower. So what are your thoughts on this?
So the rule that has been rule or whatever, the allowance that has been made to Chrysler, Ford, and Chevrolet at this point is what I call the 85% rule. So my expectation would be for it to go in at 325. Whether Lonnie and all those guys agree on that or not, I don't know. I know when I bought my 2022 Copo with the 572, which that's a crazy car. You want to talk about a car that maybe shouldn't be in the guide? That's the one. I bought it because it's silly. I said to Bronco, I said they're gonna put a big block Chevrolet in a Copo. I said, yeah, it's I can tell that's another long story. But anyway, when I bought the car, it was rated 430. I've got all the paperwork, and it's and if you look at the throttle body and you look at the cylinder head that's on that thing, that's not terribly unrealistic for how it runs. Okay.
Sure.
It is, my little old 302 made right around 600 horsepower. That 572 makes like 726. Okay. In real numbers.
Yeah.
And you'd have to spend a lot of money to make a little more. Okay, because of how restrictive it is. I'm not saying you couldn't. You throw it to Patterson or somebody, and those guys are smart. They're sharp. They could make the power, but I couldn't justify it. So by the time I took delivery of the car, it was at 500, and at one point it was 550. And and you see where it qualifies. To spend that kind of money and show up and be in the bottom half of the field is not very cool if you're me. And I know some people will say, well, you buy into these cars and that's what you deserve. Fair enough. I mean, that's more fool me. 430, I didn't kill her.
Yeah.
And I'd say, but you know that I'm not doing it. You got to know by now that I'm not doing this because I want to beat up on everybody. I'm doing this because it's fun.
Well, I mean, I can tell just by knowing you for the years that I've known you now, you don't do anything 50%. Everything you do seems like it's 110%, and you're a very persistent, ambitious person here.
Well,
the shipping weight of this now, what do we? I think 3411 is what I saw on Google.
Yeah. So again, like with the newer cars, you go through a little bit different process again, and this is to make them race worthy. What do I say is I don't have to run the airbags, the electric steering, the massive disc brakes, the heavy ass wheels, the leather seats, the stereo stuff, the wiring harness, just stuff.
Right. Yeah. You're obviously going to strip the weight out of it, but just for the guide purposes,
yeah.
I was thinking.
So what the manufacturers all do is you've got to find that natural weight. You've got to see what it can run at its lightest weight, and then going to its heaviest weight too. And somewhere in there, you usually hit some of the stuff that's out there for the production stuff, and it is production car. But you have to realize is on some of these cars, you couldn't put enough ballast in there to get to the weight that the internet wants, and you can't do it legally. So you want every manufacturer wants to see their cars race. So there has the NHRA has been very good at allowing, to work with the manufacturer to make their cars at least fit, a couple of classes, instead of being pigeonholed into they're just too dang fat. Well, look at the GTOs. Look at the 2004 to 2006 GTOs. Those cars came out when there was the 1 pound weight brakes, and you could run the GTOs stupid light. But when they got to the 1/2 pound weight brakes, now they're pigs. You got to put a lot of weight into that car to run that car in F. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but that's my perspective on that thing.
Right. Well, if they were to use I know everybody's got their calculators right now. If they use the 3411 weight break and the 85 rule, I guess, so we'll go with 325. So if we do 3,411 divided by 325, we're coming up with 10.495. Well, that's a tough one. Does that put you at 10.49 or does that put you at 10.5? But anyways, that's right on the cusp of E or F. Yeah. So that's looking at a DEF or an EFG.
It probably would get submitted a little bit lighter. Okay. Is what I would think. And again, that's I don't have the ultimate say in all this stuff. Okay, there's a I'm gonna say what I want. I know nobody's I'm not trying to build a killer right off the bat either, because I'm not here to just crap on everybody that's my friends. When I built the first Copa with the 396, I took it to Bristol the first time out. first timer, and I got a heads up. I forget who it was with. I walked over to the guy and I said, look, stay where you are. I'm going to move up a little bit. I'm tuning on this thing. I don't want to run you heads up. And heaven forbid, because I run B stock automatic, next hit, I get another guy heads up. Okay. And I go to that guy and I say, look, if you just stay where you are, I'm still tweaking. I'm going to pick it up a little more. And I did. And I got a guy that runs C stock automatic and he beat my ass. But that's kind of my temperament on that stuff. It doesn't mean I'm not going to work to try to win class at Indy, but I'm not grinding any cams right now. It may be really good and it may be okay. And I don't like to overpromise or whatever. I've got a lot to work out between now and then. I just think it'd be fun to have it there. But as far as the classes and all that stuff, yet to be decided a little bit.
Right.
But we'll try. I'm sure they'll try to be fair with it. It's you can't make everybody happy.
Now Rocket Man wants to know who's building the cars and how much.
You've got my number. You can call me. I may have one. I may already have one that somebody's asked me to do for them. So, I think that gentleman's looking for a car right now. So I can't really tell you exactly what I've spent on this car. Obviously everything I've done, I'm not going to sit here and go, okay, you have to come to me if you want a Supra. I would appreciate it if when I did these struts and these brakes and stuff, I had to buy the whole run. Okay. Just to have them, I had to buy lots. So if you are building them, if you'd like to help a buddy out and buy some pieces from me, that would be cool. And but I will, even if you didn't, I would share everything I've done with you. Okay. And, if you know me, I'd probably help you with the tune as well. I do a lot of that with people, especially with the older LT1 cars. This is a great community. Everybody helps everybody. How much boost? I say that over there. A lot. All of it. I don't know. I don't have a clue. When we throw this thing on the dyno, I hope I don't kick the rods out of it. I think it's really tough stuff. But no, I'm having fun with this thing. Everything will be. That was my plan from the beginning. Everything will be available. That's the way it should be. So you can go to your favorite chassis guy after this if you want to.
So Indy is first race hoping. So how soon do you think on the dyno, Uncle Robin's or on the track, I guess down there near you in North Carolina?
Yeah, we'll take it. Once we get it running and driving and moving around, we'll take it up to Robin. I think it'll be the first thing. That way I can get another set of eyes on it, and we can play around with the drivability a little bit on the rollers and stuff, even if we're not on the full load, and then work into a good tune. I've met a good guy, Mike from Evolution of Speed, that knows a lot about these cars, and I'm gonna probably invite him to the deal too. You can't know everything, so you got to find some people who are smarter than you sometimes. So when we get to that part, it'll be several minds working together. We will. I'm very fortunate. I've got Shady Side Dragways about 15 minutes down the road from here, and the guys that own that, I've known them forever. And we're renting a lane on Thursday just to test this 2024 car out. And I think Mike McMahon, whatever, I was just he's going to come down tomorrow and park here. We'll go eat dinner with him, and then the Thursday he's going to test with us as well. So it's a fun community,
Mike McMahon. I don't know why Joe Costello always calls him Mike McMahon or whatever.
I always call him Maka. Yeah.
I want to know why your name is Gump.
My name is Gump. Wow. Okay. So in 1995, I started off my year with 2 month-long trips to Pakistan installing textiles machinery. And I got back and I said to Veronica, I really, really want to go racing. So she said, okay. I said, I'm going to race Stock Eliminator. She said, well, and this is my wife. She said, don't race an old car, race a new one. So I went to the dealer. I ordered a 1995 Firebird. And I don't, all the stories of these guys in the 60s that went and bought a Yenko or a Judge or whatever, and they took it straight out of the dealership and they put the slicks on and they want, and those cars are discovered 30 years later and they got 5 miles on them. Well, I wanted that car. I did. That was deep down what I wanted to, and she knew that too, So I got this Firebird, and it's a factory AC Delete car. It's probably the last AC Delete car built because of when it was delivered. And because I bought it for drag racing and didn't buy all the road race stuff, the 1LE stuff, it's a one-of-one car. And to this day, it has 186 original miles. So it's kind of a cool car. That said, I learned how to weld on that car. I bought a kit from S&W, and I got a rear end from Strange. And at that time, I adapted the factory brakes to it, and I did all these things that stock should be. And it's this long story, I know, but it does get to the gum part. So I build this car, and I buy a converter from somebody and a transmission, and all I did was put a cam in the motor and some valve springs, and it's a pretty good car. And I take it out I entered in the NHRA divisional race down at Carolina Dragway, and I get out there and I street raced when I was a kid in my GTO and stuff, and thought I was hot crap, and I get out there in Carolina Dragway, and I'm with all these guys that have probably been racing since the 60s, and I stage up next to them, and I've never driven anything like this, so they're all just leaving on me, and then I'm taking off after, And so my wife's standing up there in the stands, and she told me the story. She said, every time you ran, I'd jump up and go, "Run, Forrest, run!" So what I did, being me, I had a buddy of mine make me some Gump decals for the doors, and I put that in big black and red letters on the doors, and it kind of stuck as my nickname from there out. So that's kind of funny. There I was like, I didn't really even, it was all run field, but I really didn't qualify. Second time I took it, I think I was third from the bottom. The third time I took it, I set the national record.
Wow.
So, I like to think it was just, you have to go through that learning curve. It was a pretty good car, So, I like building my own stuff. I have fun with that.
Yeah. That's nice, man. And I know for work, you make women's tights or what? What do you do?
So
you knit things? No, I make textile machines or.
So I came here from England when I was 14. My dad was a musician, and he wasn't big on paperwork and stuff. So my lifelong dream was to live in America. That's all I cared about. When I was 3 or 4 years old, like, I'm gonna live in America. That's all I want to do. And I came here when I was 14. I left home when I was 18, and basically I was the original DACA kid. It's like, if you want to live here and pay taxes and be an American, you need to leave. So at 18, I was remodeling a house for a textiles machinery company, and I got along really well with the old guy that ran the company, and he got me a job interview in Stuttgart. So I got an airplane, flew to England, hadn't seen my mom in 4 years. I visited with her, visited with my grandfather. I rode the ferry across to the Hook of Holland, and then I rode the Ride Express down to Stuttgart. I got there. I did the interview. They hired me for $5 an hour. I thought I was the richest guy in the world. I remember this to this day. It's like, and then I discovered overtime. It's like, whoa. But during the interview for that job, I had $50 left, and I'm sitting there, and I said, okay. They said, you're hired, and I said, can you lend me some money? So that was like on my job interview. That's just how it was. I've always had that kind of personality, And so what they did is they made machines that packaged pantyhose, and I got pretty good at it. They wanted me to stay there. I wanted back in the U.S. They found me a job in Canada fixing a pantyhose line, and from that, I was there for 6 months. The company offered to sponsor me. and I had to go back to England. So I found a machine that was made in England that assembled pantyhose, and I went to England and took a job interview. Took a job, and at the interview, I said, I want to work for you for 6 months. I'll be the best guy you ever had, and I'll go back to Canada, and I'll be the best guy you ever have. And so I emigrated to Canada. And now I got the endorsement of the Canadian government, that I know my stuff, and I'm like 20 years old, and I worked there for a couple of years, and the agent in Montreal for the equipment, he ended up hiring me away from that company, and they had die machines, and all guys like to work in the air conditioned rooms, and nobody wanted to work in a die house. And I decided I'd do that. It was nasty, dirty, greasy, stinky. But I was doing that work as a service tech all over Canada. And I still worked on the packaging machines and stuff, but I specialized more in the die machines. And I ended up finding a company in the U.S. that would sponsor me. And so I ended up immigrating to the U.S. Total time to get a green card was, 6.5 years.
Wow.
They actually gave me my green card on my right on my 25th birthday, which I thought that was a big ass joke, But I can tell you about my final interview with the guy there. It was like he finally told me to calm down. I was in, but he was messing with me. Yeah, it was something.
Wow.
But going to the dye houses was a smart choice because pantyhose are gone pretty much now. Ladies don't wear them anymore. Back then it was huge. Okay. So I worked over the years with Hanes in all their sock plants. A lot of the companies like Comfort Colors make garment dye T-shirts and all that stuff. I worked in that pretty heavy. I still have that company going. With free trade, it's kind of gone away a little bit. If I'm talking too much, tell me to shut up, okay?
No, I'm learning here. Keep going. Yeah.
But with that, I ended up now I'm the agent for that dye machine. We still sell, and new machinery sales is kind of low, but we sell a good bit of used equipment. We rebuild machines. As a spin-off from that, there's a lot of stainless steel valves on those machines, like water valves to fill them up, drains and chemicals. I used to buy a lot from a European company, and their quality went down, their prices went up, availability got bad. So I started my own valve company, and I started just originally for me and my projects. And then I started selling a little bit around locally and testing stuff locally. And then I got a laundry distributor, and I put up a website, and I get this random call one day, and it's this guy. He says, "Hey, I'm so-and-so. I'm up in Detroit, and we'd like to try your valves on the assembly lines." I'm like, "Okay, where?" They said, "GM."
Ooh.
I said, "Well, how many do you want?" So I wrapped up some valves. I next dayed them to the guy. And all this stuff I'm talking about, it's all niche stuff. I'm so under the radar, people, because on the financial side of it, like it's just niche stuff. I make a little money. I get to play with race cars, But anyway, this guy, I'm not a high pressure sales guy. I kind of like, okay, I've done that. And maybe about 3 months later, he calls me and he says, "Congratulations." And I said, "First off, who is this?" And second off, like, "Congratulations on what?" He said, "Well, you've got the global contract to put a cooling valve on every welder on every assembly line at GM."
Wow.
So that's kind of cool. From that, we've done the Tesla plants. I know that's a bad word, but right these days. But we've done Tesla, we've done Chrysler, we've done some Ford plants. It's neat. It's nice to be involved in manufacturing here in the U.S. And it's a little niche. It's not huge money, but it lets me play with race cars a little bit.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, I'm lucky. I got a wife that's the head of the local hospital. She's the steady Eddie. I'm the roller coaster ride.
Oh man, well, yeah, that helps.
Yeah, it helps.
Good for you, man.
Yeah, leaps and bounds.
True entrepreneur. Been wanting this story for a long time, says Darian Houston. So
yeah, so tell Darian I am going to put in the stick shift, all the specs for the stick shift, so that will be an option in the cars.
All right,
I saw he had that question a while ago.
6-speed. Yeah, the comments. There were so many comments that I didn't really get to, but I've kept you on long enough tonight. This is probably the longest podcast I've done in about 2 or 3 years at this point.
Okay.
So,
Well,
and it's
I
good. I mean, the
appreciate it.
viewership has been up all night, and I can't thank you enough, Darian, for coming on and spending some time with us. And
We've had some fun. I know everybody's not going to agree with me, and that's fine. And the rule book's what the rule book is.
no,
Yeah.
that's hey, it's a little diversity never hurt anybody as long as the combo is policeable, as long as you're doing things by the rule book, and I would assume that you are.
I talked to Lonnie yesterday. I said, Lonnie, I said, I guess you're going to, I'd asked them to come down and look at the motors when I was putting them together because it's going to be a hard tear down. And I said to Lonnie, I said, the other thing was we'll probably have to pull the motors to tear them down. And I said, I guess, Lonnie, you're going to tear me down soon, aren't you? And he's like, absolutely. Yeah, I have that to look forward to in my life,
There you go. Well, bring some extra tools and a cherry picker to Indy when you bring the car with you.
You should see the tools you have to work on these things. Yeah, it's a neat project. If you know me, I kind of have fun tearing down. So we'll see.
There you go. I like this guy. I would definitely drive one of his Supras. I'm sold, says Walt Walker.
Awesome. I somebody a while ago was kind of fussing a little bit, and I hope I do nothing to hurt you in all this. That's not my intent. All
right, we know it. You're out having a good time. All right, buddy. You have a good night. Thanks for joining us, man. We appreciate it. Be sure to keep us updated on more progress with the car.
Thank you very much.
All right. And tell your wife that we all said hello. She didn't walk by the camera. We never got to see her. So tell Veronica we all said hi.
She went into hiding. Thank you.
All right. See you, buddy. See you. All right. That was Daren Poole-Adams. And that was interesting to hear a lot about, not only the car that we all wanted to hear more about, but his life story. I mean, he came over from England when he was 14, went back, came back, Canada, and then took, 6.5 years to get his green card. I mean, that's like the American dream right there. And he's really living it up, I should say, in North Carolina down there in America. So thank you guys. I appreciate y'all tuning in. I know there was more comments up in the beginning, and I didn't really get to flash them in, but I know somebody asked me when my stick car was coming back out, and I hope in the next 2 months or so. Just got to get the engine in and just get things fitted up. We're trying a lot of different things this year. We got a different oil pan now. Just, how it is with these cars. It's never just plug and play. This doesn't fit right, or that doesn't fit, or this needs adjustment, or this is in the way, or this header is now hitting over here. How race cars can be. So, with a little good fortune, maybe sooner than that. If everything just fits right into place, wow, we'd be ready in 2 weeks. So, hopefully, I can't wait to get the car back out there. As far as Stick Shift Nationals this weekend, June 13th and 14th, the main event is on Saturday. I don't know. This weather forecast just won't make up its mind, so it's been tough. Who knows? Not sure. That's why Race GM, Bobby. Yeah, that's right. Ray's still awake. All right. My goodness. Book the flight right in the morning. Stick Shift National is calling your name. Sure is. All right, guys. You know what else is calling my name? My bed. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks to all the sponsors that make this possible. And thanks for Daren Poole-Adams for coming on tonight. Guys, be sure to make sure that you like, share, and subscribe the channel. I appreciate that. Okay? Have a good night, everyone. Take care.